Hello, my name is Dave, founder of Halloween Year Round, and I'm here with a person who is rolling their eyes because he thinks I'm going to do this voice for the entire video. But I'm not, so welcome our dorky friend Chris, founder of Dork Daily. Say hi.
Hi, everybody. Yeah, if you did that voice the entire video, I would put myself in a trap myself. So, but thankfully, it hasn't come to that.
I don't think anyone's ever put themselves in a. I maybe Amanda in Saw 2 ish. She put herself in the house.
Uh, yeah. Well, in this one, somebody,
Wait.
and I guess we should say spoil.
So we're not here to
Are
talk
we
about
not doing
Saw 2.
spoilers?
No, we're doing spoilers, but we're not here to talk about Saw 2. We're here to talk about Saw X, which was not a
Yes.
crossover with Saw and X-Men. Kind of disappointing. But what are you gonna do?
Yes.
And we will be
Yeah.
getting
That
the
whole
major
Disney, that
spoilers.
whole Disney Fox deal, that whole Disney Fox deal that fell through. So.
Yeah. This movie, it's got spoilers, but I also feel like we know what happens to the main characters eventually, and we know that this takes place between 1 and 2.
Yeah, it has kind of one of those things like I think Star Wars and the preface is I love the film. I thought that it's arguably the best Saw film overall. It is the best Saw film, arguably.
I will argue
Maybe my
it's one of the better it's one of the better Saw films. It's better than Lionsgate finally realized stop trying to do a soft reboot with Jigsaw or with Spiral. That's not what we wanted. We want more John Kramer,
yeah.
and even the producers admitted in an interview recently that they think maybe it was a mistake to kill John Kramer off so early.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I read that, and I was gonna say like, yeah, we've had Jigsaw and Spiral, their most recent ones, but I mean, you could argue that this trend kind of started in Saw 4, where I mean, okay, Saw 4 did have a lot of John Kramer, as in like that was kind of like
Mm-hmm.
his prequel story, but after that, in 5, 6, and 7, like it was sort of glorified cameos to some extent,
The
and,
Hoffman trilogy,
and
as I call them, five,
the
six, and
Hoffman
7.
trilogy,
Yeah.
yeah, and in hindsight, I mean, I think James Wan and Lee Winnell set out like we're gonna end on so to prepare for this, I watched the first three movies over again. I've seen all the movies. I don't make it a habit of rewatching them,
Why
because
not? They're a joy.
I'm not, a sick bastard. But the first three movies work really well as a trilogy. Like if it was only those three movies, they really, really work well together. And I knew that's kind of the only context I needed for this new one, coming out. And yeah, I mean, they kind of they kind of wrote themselves into a corner. I also have something in common with Saw X in that I am also about to make a movie right now that takes place in 2004, and
Ah.
I was noticing like the little things they were showing like from like the web browser and kind of
The
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 rudimentary type of
dot
email
net,
form.
the flip phone,
Yeah,
he has a razor phone.
yeah, although I did read, I was looking at IMDb Goops for the movie because I always like to jump into that after I see it. But apparently, that phone that you saw in the movie is from '09, so that was a mistake.
Ah.
Yeah, but I didn't notice it. So, they did kind of put themselves into a corner, but I this is the best Saw movie since the original. I mean, I don't, I think the original is such a fascinating study in how to do an independent horror film. And I think this one just leaned on the best parts of the franchise um
The characters.
being the
Jigsaw
characters.
himself. The You got so much more with him and Amanda in this that we only I mean we get a good bit of it in Saw 3, but there's like a whole
like father-daughter dynamic they have that regrettably, we didn't get to see played out that much in the other movies, and it's just cool to see here.
We get the end of it. We get the end of that relationship, because they both die at the end. But yeah, I mean, it was really, really great to see Shawnee Smith back and kind of seeing a version of Amanda that, was still a little unsure about how much she wanted to commit to this,
I
and
mean,
even John.
Amanda went so far as, we know she mercy killed Adam. We know that after her fight with Eric Matthews, she's tortured. She always felt that way, and I like that she especially feels that way about Gabriella, who had been the drug addict. Like she sympathizes with her.
Yeah, Gabriella was a really interesting character, and like I gotta tell you, like most of the victims in Saw movies, I don't really find that interesting. Like it's almost like you're always, especially in the later films, I'm always waiting for Jigsaw to pop back up. Like he's the scene stealer, and so they did a whole movie of the scene stealer, and it worked. It worked really, really well, and I think that's just a testament.
It's the only movie that he's the protagonist.
He's a protagonist. I mean,
and it's almost a revenge movie. I hesitate to call it that because, as Jigsaw himself said, this is not retribution. This is rehabilitation.
Yeah. But he is, and what I really the first like half hour is just kind of John Kramer the movie. Just like what was he?
Him. He's more vulnerable than we've ever seen him before in the movies.
Yeah, and the whole so obviously like in the trailers we know where the plot's going to go. I think you kind of had to reveal that, because we all know he dies. Like it's not,
and we know he's terminal, and you kind of had to know his justification for putting them in that, they swindled him. And great way to get the audience to root for the serial killer is you okay, let's give a villain who's literally like ripping off and conning cancer patients. Like that's the most despicable thing you can do, and it gets you to root for Jigsaw right from the beginning.
That's the thing, and it's heartbreaking in the beginning because like you see like John has hope for this. It's like his, you can see he's very optimistic about it, and it broke my heart when he's like he buys that bottle of alcohol for Gabrielle, and he's like, oh, this is for a friend. Like he's so grateful. And then he goes and he sees it's like it's really the most emotional Saw movie, I think, by far. So yeah, I think it was, what a way to make him the anti-hero. I mean, he is a hero in this film. I mean, he saves the little boy, at the end, Carlos. And also interesting, this is the first time Jigsaw is kind of like in a trap himself in a lot of ways. And there was a lot in this movie that surprised me in a good way. Like I didn't know, like you have obviously your Saw staples, but I think the last two Saw movies, I even in the theater, I remember thinking, this is the same shit I've seen a million times.
I mean, like, literally with 2017's Jigsaw, it's just a repeat of the series of tests from Saw 5 and the twist from Saw 2. Oh, it's not taking place at the same time. Like they literally just ripped off their own movies. But
it's not like for me with the series, I was really never interested in the traps. I mean, I think they're interesting, and I think they're fan favorites, of course.
They're fun for the sick freaks like me,
right?
But there's got to be more to it, and that's part of the reason why I always loved the Saw franchise more so than like the Hostel movies, because there was always so much more to it than that.
Yeah, and with the after John Kramer died, and and rewatching the first Saw movie, I remember why I liked it so much, because it is like a mystery. It really is a thriller, and this really felt like oh, this is really a thriller again. And
now imagine how different would it have been had this come out actually between 1 and 2, or if you're a new viewer coming into the franchise, you watch the first movie and then you watch this one before Saw 2.
I was thinking about that, and
Like, obviously, it drops major reveals, like the fact that Amanda and Hoffman are working with him.
right. Yeah. I think it works well in the timeline. I mean, I think it's great. It's certainly a reflection piece on the franchise, and I think it does work best as installment number 10, even though like in the actual timeline of the movie
It's
universe
1.5.
it is earlier. But yeah, I mean it does, like, there's a lot of things that feel like the first couple movies, but it does still feel like I, I don't want to say it's a masterpiece, but it's a masterpiece as far as Saw movies go. Like
It's
it felt
one
very
that
mature. Yeah.
I will be the first to admit, as you know, I love these movies. It's my favorite horror franchise. They're definitely formulaic in that, pretty much after the first one, it's like we have our plot over here with people going through traps or tests, and then we have our plot over here where it's the cops trying to catch them, and they're kind of running simultaneously. And it is. I fully admit that.
Wait. John Kramer never targeted cops. What are you talking about?
No, Chris Rock, he did. He did. But no, what I really liked about this one is, it gave us, I will say it is probably Tobin Bell's best performance of the franchise.
It is definitely his best performance.
My favorite before this was Saw 2, because it's the one that has the most of him in it. And there, he's still kind of a mysterious figure, but here, you're right. He's a person. And even Amanda, she has emotional moments in this that rival what she did in Saw 3, which I always thought was, Shawnee Smith's crowning achievement of the franchise was, everything that happened in Saw 3. I just, and I hate to, I wish she had a better wig in this. Like, I'm glad they didn't try like the really bad looking de-aging CGI, because on the budget this movie had, it would not have looked good. I just like, it's one of the only criticisms of that, and I guess we can talk a little about criticism because I love the movie. It feels like a Saw movie.
Yeah, and it does. And one other thing I'll say on the positive end is, I didn't know where it was going to go. Like when the bad doctor lady escaped, and they have and I know it was in the trailer, like you saw John Kramer at gunpoint, but I didn't remember what part of the movie that happened. I thought that was at the beginning when he gets taken into the place. So I didn't really know where it was going to go. I mean, obviously I know the end game for all this, but I was very invested. I was very intrigued in where it was going to go. And I felt for John and Amanda. That's the thing, is that like you're on their side with this. Like, even though it's really messed up, like this is the most you're on their side. Like, oh, like John's got to save the kid, and then you think
again, it gives you this villain who is willing to just sacrifice a kid like it's nothing. And it makes you realize Jigsaw is actually not that bad, and it actually makes you kind of think maybe you could do the same thing he did.
Not me.
No, but so I love that, it definitely, I love that they got back Kevin Grutart, I think it's how or Grutar. His last name looks French. I don't know how you pronounce it. He directed Saw 6 and 7. Definitely made up for Saw 7, which is my least favorite entry, but I don't blame him for that.
This is his best one.
Oh,
for sure. And I love, I would say this Saw 6 for a while was my favorite, my second or third favorite one, and this one was better than that one.
I would say so. As far as criticism, because I loved most of it. There's only a few things I wasn't crazy about. I don't want to talk long about them because there's not that much, but I do kind of want to.
I have some things too, but yeah, let me hear what you got.
So first and foremost, Amanda's wig doesn't look great. It will go down as this generation's Courtney Cox's terrible bangs in Scream 3. Another thing that bugged me a little bit, I almost felt like John and Amanda are like too quick to reveal themselves to people, and at times were a little bit too quippy to the point that I'm like, did Joss Whedon write this? Like it's most egregious in the mid credit scene with Hoffman, and he's like, of all the men you could have cheated, and you picked John Kramer. Talk about epic bad luck. That feels like something you would see in a YouTube comment, not something that Detective Hoffman would say with Jigsaw in the room. Because the thing is, Jigsaw, he takes this so seriously, what he does.
Yeah.
I understood it a little bit when Amanda was having that back and forth with the doctor, like, oh, I've checked your records. I've looked into this. Because, like, yeah, she's hammering it into her, like, we know what you've been doing. But there's a couple moments that it almost felt like they were winking at the audience a little too much.
Well, when Jess and I saw this, we were laughing at some of the lines like they were saying when John's like he's like, I'm like a life coach. So yeah, I mean, there were a couple like quippy moments like that, but I think at installment number 10, like I think they've earned it. I mean, I think there's been so many, and I think that the mythology has been around so long that we're all in on it. Like we're all in on the inside
but
jokes.
If it's going to take place in between 1 and 2, it has to feel like it did in that era.
I don't agree necessarily, because there's definitely things in this that, I mean, obviously, the two main actors are aged, so they don't look like you have
Tobin Bell looks exactly the same, with the exception of this is the, I mean, in the whole time, we know that, John Kramer's had cancer. He actually looked sick in this. Like they kind of made him, he was very thin. They made him look like he was sick.
Yeah. Well, that's why I say it works as a 10th installment. Like it works as a prequel or a midquel, whatever you want to call it. So I guess I didn't mind that as much, but what I did mind was you're right. That was another thing, is that they are very quick to reveal themselves. I mean, we're talking about characters that would, and maybe more so Hoffman than Jigsaw and Amanda, but would kill to protect their identity.
Yeah, why is Hoffman revealing himself to this guy unless he knows he's going to die? But then doesn't John realize, oh, this guy has to have a chance to live?
Yeah, maybe they do that in Saw 11. I don't know. But
so that's where I think there were times that when writing this, it was almost like they were treating it more like a revenge movie than remembering what Jigsaw's methods are. That being said, I love the way it fits in with the greater mythology very well, much like a jigsaw puzzle piece, pun intended. It fits perfectly.
Yes. So I could understand it with the folks in in Mexico when they're in that one room, and I know that obviously like Jigsaw usually leaves a tape or a videotape or something for them, but I think that he really wanted to face them. Like he really just wanted them. It's not the first time he's done it. I mean, obviously like in Jigsaw, another prequel, he does face people, that at least one person that knows him. And so the question then becomes, are they either they're going to die, or if they win the game, they have to not tell anybody? Like, do they automatically become an apprentice?
That? And why was Amanda revealing herself? In Saw 2, the whole twist is that Jigsaw tells Eric Matthews, go ahead, destroy my work, do whatever you want, because he knows he's got Amanda to carry it on.
Yeah. And maybe it was the fact that they were in a different country and they felt like this was kind of like there was not a connection to whatever city they're from. Do you know what I mean? That was
the unnamed city that looks a lot like Toronto.
Yeah, the unnamed. But you know what I mean? I think because it was so far away, it was kind of like Jigsaw on vacation. It's like, that's not gonna, what happens in Mexico stays in Mexico.
It's like, Christmas Vacation 2, Jigsaw does Mexico. Next will be Jigsaw takes Manhattan.
right, because they like they didn't say Amanda Young, like they didn't know who. And I guess like the people that survived the traps that were part of the scam, like, are they going to admit they did a scam? I mean, maybe they would if they survive. But in John's mind, like he's thinking, they're going to be rehabilitated. Like that's his hope
Mhm.
if they pass the test. The whole thing with Gabriella was really heartbreaking because you could tell, like, Jigsaw had a soft spot for her, like I think in a way like he did with Amanda. And then like, oh shit, like she passes her test, but then the bad doctor lady kills her. Like that's like, oh wow, okay. So I mean,
That
I
was
guess that's kind
not
of how
in
you.
compliance with the Hippocratic Oath. I don't know if you know this, but stomping people's necks till they die is actually not what doctors are supposed to do.
I had heard that.
I
We
just
don't even know if
want
she's a doctor, right? Do we even know if she's a doctor?
she may not be. That's the thing is,
Yeah.
Mateo certainly wasn't.
Right, right. Well, what Mateo was like a vet, right? Or he worked at a vet office.
Yeah.
The only thing I was thinking is when Amanda captures him and like the dogs stop barking, I'm like, I hope Amanda didn't hurt the dogs. And I don't think she would, but yeah, I don't know if she like gave him a bone or something. I don't know.
I feel like Amanda would take pity on them and not want to harm them.
I would think so, especially in this movie.
Amanda was always big on these people she feels sorry for, but these people deserve it. Whereas like she flat out
Yeah.
told John, this doctor lady, she doesn't deserve to live. She doesn't deserve a chance. And I kind of love that her ultimate test was like the least gruesome. It was literally just be a decent human being. And she failed.
Be a decent human being. Yeah. Well, because he kind of knew that Hoffman was, by that point, he knew Hoffman was too brutal. He knew Hoffman was too brutal and knew Amanda was too emotional. So he's like, do I really want to leave it all to Hoffman? By this point he's dying. He doesn't really. And then, I know at a certain point he sort of recruits Jill in a way. I mean, kind of. So yeah, all that to say,
I just want to know, while this movie's happening, is anyone remembering Dr. Gordon? Because they said this takes place a few weeks after the first Saw. So was Dr. Gordon sitting there in his little like dungeon cell with his leg healing? Like, somebody, is anybody gonna feed me today?
No, I don't think he was in a cell anymore. I think
Maybe John had released
because
him at that point.
I would think that John had released him at that point. Then he came the next time in the chronology we see him is when he's putting the key in the eye in Saw 2. So
that would be Michael,
I think that he
the
probably
informant in the Venus flytrap.
Right, Michael the informant. But like the part in Saw 7, Saw 3D, where he's like looking out and he's like, seeing the sunlight for the first time.
So that probably had already happened. And then with the larger chronology, and I love that they trust the audience to just like know it. But I love that.
Well, and I really liked it.
Saw 6.
What?
So we know the conversation he had with William Easton about getting this treatment covered happened during this movie.
It did, which is interesting because I went back and because it's one of my favorite scenes in the series, but I went back and I rewatched it and I did find some inconsistencies because he talks about Dr. Gordon in that scene kind of in a negative way, in a way that I think that he wouldn't talk about him after he's survived the test, and kind of talks about Dr. Gordon in a way that implies that his test hasn't happened yet. You know what I mean?
The other thing is, in the first Saw, he's bald and he has a full head of hair now.
Well, I think he shaved it.
No, but if Saw X takes place a few weeks later, did he have time for the full head of hair to grow back?
Yeah, I wanted it to be connected, but then like he talks to Easton about, he's like, I talked to he says that he's talked to the doctor, talked to him, and he thinks I'm the perfect candidate, but he never talks. He talks to his daughter, if that's the same person. So it's a little murky.
There were 2
But
experimental Norwegian trials.
I mean, there could have been. I mean, I think
I mean, you
honestly,
never know.
I think based on that and based on just the way he talks about Dr. Gordon, it seems like Saw 1 has not happened yet. Like, maybe he's kind of planning it, but it hasn't happened yet. But yeah.
But other than a few
But yeah, really,
minor things like that,
yeah,
overall,
very minor.
one of the best Saw movies. I love there was just enough fan service, like when he's on the phone and he's like, "Detective, I need you to locate me."
Yeah.
Like at that moment, I'm like, I don't care if we see Hoffman. I'm just glad it acknowledged him, and that Hoffman is like
Yeah,
the PI finding all these people for the traps.
I felt the same way. I like that he didn't have to say Detective Hoffman like that, right?
And it holds true with he always refers to him as detective. Even in the tape he swallows that Hoffman plays at the autopsy, it says, "Are you there,
Yeah.
detective?" Because it's a message specifically for him.
Yeah, I have to rewatch. I'll probably go back and rewatch some of them now, like 4, 5, and 6 and 7.
And that said, it was cool. We got that one little scene of Hoffman at the end.
That was cool, yeah, and it was a little bit out of character, but it was great to kind of see. I'll also see Hoffman back in his future tomb.
Yeah, he has no idea that's where he's gonna die.
Yeah, although we didn't see him die, so it is possible he escaped.
Saw XI takes place after Saw 7.
Yeah,
I would genuinely love to see like a spin-off or whatever where like Hoffman escapes that and the whole movie is just like Hoffman and Gordon in like a chess match with each other.
Well, we know Carrie Elwes is never going to do that. So
no, probably
honestly,
not. He's a very nice person. I met him just a few months ago at a con.
Yeah.
Epitome of like the British gentleman. Very nice person. He signed our Saw poster and he gave my daughters a free signed photo from Princess Bride. It was really cool to do that.
Oh, that's cool. You didn't ask him, why didn't you go back for Adam? He was right there.
I didn't. I should have. I should have. So, anyways, Saw X, Saw 10. That's how you do a legacy sequel years later. You don't try you don't erase earlier sequels. You don't mess with the continuity. You give the fans what they want. And it's a movie that, again, you could just, you could even, I feel like you just come into this blind and watch it and still get enjoyment out of it, though.
I think you would, not nearly as much, but I think you would. It is an interesting stand. I mean, I think that's what they tried to do with Jigsaw and Spiral, is like, oh, let's do a standalone. This is a standalone in a lot of ways, but it works in the mythology really well too. Like there's a bonus if you're into it. What I will say is I would be happy if this was the last one. If they do another one, I'm really not excited about it unless it's Tobin Bell, like as the main character again, because it's got to be. And hopefully this does well in the box office. I tell you, this is like their highest rated critically.
Oh, it is
Saw film ever, which I say good for them. That's great.
So check out Saw X. Let us know, what are your favorite Saw movies? What would you like to see in any potential sequel? Like, share, subscribe, all the YouTube stuff. If you don't, you may end up waking up with a tape that says "Play Me" in a deadly game. And anything you want to plug?
Check out darkdaily.com, delcothemovie.com. If you're interested in the movies that take place in 2004, that's what I'm working on now. So check it out.
Basically going to be just like Saw X, right?
It's going to be exactly like Saw X.
It'll be an exact shot for shot remake of Saw X.
Yeah. I was watching, I'm like, oh, I wonder where I can get those like Internet Explorer templates, to use on a computer screen.
Reddit's got everything.
Yeah.
So like, share, subscribe, and as always, every day is Halloween.